And just now, Dmytro Potekhin, who was freed from captivity, political analyst, director of European Strategy Group, civic activist and blogger, he will speak. Welcome, Mr. Dmytro. Good morning. I'd like to thank everyone who, or good afternoon. Thank you for helping to free me. You were concerned. Some efforts were not as effective as others, but still, I'd like to thank you. I still do not know how it happened that I'm free again. I don't know universal recipe to help those who are still in captivity. Unfortunately, but there are many people, especially in the city where I was kept. I keep in contact with people who are still in Donetsk, and those who were freed, they were those who were imprisoned with me. They were local, so they had very few options, and those people I keep in touch. They also keep telling me that there are new prisoners, and that worries me. And it is important to make sure that our nation and international community would remember those who are still kept prisoners of war, who are located in those territories, because in reality this is one huge prison. So here I would conclude my short presentation. I would listen to your questions if you'd like to ask them. Sir Dmytro, please tell us, for those who do not know or who does not remember the story, how that happened. How did you get there? I'm political analyst. I write for popular publications. I write analytics as well. I also teach trainings on armless resistance and violence-free resistance. I was trying to study information online, but I didn't have enough. So in order to get full information, I took a trip to then the bus. I just bought a train ticket, and I had return train ticket as well. But just 1 hour before my return, I was detained as I was going through by Hotel Liverpool on the way to train station. And it turned out that there was roadblock in that hotel, except it was hidden. I was detained. There were some things that I had that to them served as my spy ID, which is my phone and my passport with Kiev registration. They put a bag over my head and handcuffed me. So in this hotel, Liverpool, they questioned me first, and then the following day they took me from Liverpool to the place that looked like city police unit. There was questioned again by a different group of people. Then they took me to isolation, former factory and art center. There was more questioning. Who was questioning? The people would not introduce themselves, but they had certain call names. They were representatives of so-called Ministry of Internal Security of DNR. Once I was questioned by a person who was introduced to me as a FSB officer. What did they want to know? They were trying to prove to me that I'm a spy, and they were trying to find out who I was, why I came, who I worked for, how much I earn, whether my family was threatened for me to come, whether I was paid to come. They tried to, when they realized who I was, they tried to convince me to work at one of propaganda TV channels. After I refused, I was returned to isolation. one time they would take me back to this conversation with FSB officer. When I refused, they took me into more severe conditions, and they kept me for another couple of weeks. What kind of severe conditions did they give you to eat? How they treated you? They almost did not hit me. They pushed me just once. By the end of my detention, I didn't know that was the end of detention, but part of the torture was that nobody knew how long we would be there. No mechanism of accusation, no mechanism of freeing, no court. So all this was just decision of special services of DNR that were trying to define how serious we were. Most people were detained from couple days to couple weeks, less than I was. There was one person who stayed there for 60 days, but they were free together with me, and they were political detainees. There are some people staying there. Who let you go? Who freed you? I don't know, but it happened so that several days before a real freedom, there were several untrue liberations. They returned my thanks to me, and they invited me to write a letter that I have no complaints against this DNR security service. But they returned me back, and it turned out that it was just questioning by a FSB officer. They told me that Ukrainian side refuses to take me back to exchange me. They would give me a name of a person that I would be exchanged with, but then they said Ukrainian side refuses or delays exchange, so that was just psychological pressure that we are trying to convince me that nobody is waiting me. And after a conversation with FSB, I was told that nobody needs you anywhere. We'll give you a computer. We'll let you work for Life News if you stayed. The liberation happened after they took me out of the cell. They brought us out to check a cell or this bomb shelter that was turned into a cell because primary hygiene was absent, no ventilation. That was almost like a gas chamber. They took us out, and part of people were placed in a military van, and they brought us to a former building of government audit commission, and in Donetsk they questioned me again by the leader of investigation department of MGB. They said, we questioned you on the first day. Nothing was confirmed from what we suspected, and you're free to go. Other MGB officers that questioned me on the first day tried to develop the version that I was organizer of Orange Revolution, supported by British and American, which was funny, in fact, because it's a war around. The people are shooting, exploding, and I'm accused of organization of forced removal of Yanukovych and Kuchma regime of 2004, when they understood the absurdity of the questioning. They stopped the questioning line. After this discussion, they offered me MGB convoy for me to take me out, but I was not sure that this is true, and they offered me to, I asked them just to let me go. I explained that I'm not a military officer, so in reality I should not be exchanged, but they told me there will be press, media, you will be recognized. I said, I don't need anything, just let me go, just like you detain me without any reason. And when I announced that I would be starving myself because there are no reasons for keeping me, that disappoint them because they believed they were doing something good for DNR, just to keeping people captive and torturing them. I was freed, and then the following day I spent the night in private apartment. Didn't want to register in hotel because the only document that I had was Kiev registration passport. That was the reason for my detention. The next morning I got in touch with international journalists that I knew that stayed in Donetsk, and they agreed with me about the way of getting me out by their convoy. And then they called to MGB and said, if you can give your convoy, then that would be good. And very fast that happened, but there was MGB convoy, but they checked me at 2 roadblocks. So who are these special people that are convoyed by MGB? And that was another unpleasant moment because these different units of DNR were armed, and they would have conflicts between themselves, armed conflicts. While still I was in detention, I was a witness to such fire exchange using guns. The conflict was about 2 cargoes of champagne when MGB discovered that was champagne from other DNR units, and they came with artillery to take those trucks with champagne for themselves. There was another case when DNR people were captured by other group of DNR, and their friends would fight the detention officers to free those captives. So finally I found peace when I crossed the border of Ukrainian.
In fact, we are absolutely glad that you are free and you are sound and intact. So I'm hearing your story, and everything is looking like everything is human. It was not human, but of course there were no legal basis for your detent. Okay, my question is, what was the key factor? Why you've been freed and dozens of people illegally being detained? Why? I have only my understanding of why they let me go. I could not say that everything was human there. As for other people, having no such experience or expertise and reputation, in sense that MGB regroup means that they applied very strict, very tough violence to them. They've been beaten, and now there are many other cases in other places, but I think that they now less violent. As for me, when people were brought in, they've been pressed, and they offered them choice if they could pay and be released, or they will still be captured. Or probably they could be released if they don't have anything like something tangible other than cell phone or clothes, etc. So this is part of very important economy of MGB Donetsk Republic, with all the stolen cars or say taken cars. The violence was applied to me, probably intendedly or unintendedly, but after I announced that I will have a hunger strike, then 1 week passed, and of course many people, they had their commotion towards me because they ate the same way that I ate when I was in that hunger strike. So probably they understood that their tactics they still understand that I'm an agent of certain organization, but obviously for the people that serve in this MGB, of course it would be better if they could take me in their side. After their proposal and my refusal, since certain time since the beginning of my hunger strike, they understood that no chance for them with me. So as well, I understand that certain diplomatic channels, they tried to use them in order to release me. For how much days you've been captured? For 48 days. Your next steps now. You know, just physical steps is a great pleasure for me now because I am free. You may go, you may breathe, you may eat and see your relatives, your friends, your children, and that you don't have anybody behind your back with a machine gun. That's very happy feeling. You are active as a blogger. Will you continue to use your blogs? I don't know why am I called blogger. My only blog that was in Ukrainian Pravda was placed in Ukrainian Pravda. It was closed since Maidan times. Of course, I have certain activity in social network. Yeah, I have certain accounts, and on regular basis, I put my blogs there. I continue to be involved in analytics when it is ordered. I continue to train people in a peaceful resistance. And it is really a good way out for Donetsk regime because that regime is based on the fair, that is common affair against Ukrainian people. You mean citizens of Donetsk? So you understand it that as in Donetsk there are still certain share of population that is scared of Ukrainian people. I don't know what share, but people that spend certain time with me in that captivity, they still, even after all the, so to say, in quota, goods of Donetsk Republic, they still do not understand what is this, what is the combination of year 1917, 1937 they have. And I believe that they understand the mythologized threat from Ukrainian party as a real threat. Until the military action is going on, until the propaganda channels from Russia has opportunity to show that show it as Donetsk citizens being protected by Donetsk separatists from so-called nationalistic threat. Until this is stopped, nobody could hold control over their own so-called government, even non-legitimate government. We understand that it must be peace. There should be democratic institutes established, of course, not in the form that is now present there. And it started as nonviolent resistance. Okay, Dmytro, we have ceasefire regime. Now Ukrainian militants, they do not shoot on the living quarters, but a lot of time, much time passed, and Donetsk citizens, they had the choice to understand that we are not bandits, we are not violators. I believe this is too optimistic evaluation of the feelings of people living there. I understand, I hope that it will come, the reconsidering the, say, change of mind of Donetsk people. This is kind of a neo-Soviet mass consciousness. They could even be unhappy with their own government, and of course they are unhappy. In media isolation, they have in Donetsk Russian channels, TV channels. They could still show or present situation as a nationalistic threat or something, as well as Russian citizens. They forgive Putin a lot of things. They forgive him because he's usually pours all the threats on their heads, the threats of a Western world. And that's why Russians, they at least for some time, could excuse Putin for violation of human rights, violation of democracy, etc. And similar mechanism works in Donetsk until propaganda will have a chance to show Ukrainian militants wearing arms. Until then, a big share of Donetsk citizens would understand that as somebody came to beat them. My last question is, could you make comments on the recent laws on the special regime of self-governing in Donetsk and Lugansk? I haven't seen the laws. I try now to understand what is going on in Ukraine, what changes we have in Kiev other than just painting in yellow and white in Kiev. What is your first impression? My first impression that is, of course, it is much easier, much more comfortable here than there. Being an analyst, watching the situation and hoping that the country will be comfortable for everybody, for different part of the country, from Crimea, from Donetsk, as well as for citizens that finally started to invest in Ukraine, and I believe that they will be the investment will be protected. I'm trying to understand what's going on, but I believe that Ukraine and Donetsk, in fact, will have a lot of goods, a lot of good of the independence, real independence. And I finally published an article telling everybody that it could be good if citizens in Donetsk would be able to hold control over their own politicians, not to place the burden of guilt over the shoulders of Western people, etc. And of course, it is not a proper situation when they kill people in order to have then corrupted and non-controlled Donetsk and Donbass. They should have a chance. We should have a support from people who'd like to leave that area, as well as from the people that would like to build a realistic democracy there. At the same time, I do not see any conscious policy from initiated by Kiev in this to this end, and as well. They do not. They try to deprive people that voted against. Voted for Donetsk Independent Republic to deprive them of Ukrainian citizen, and it's not the proper way, because I do not think that this is a democratic way to say deprive them of the citizen, Ukrainian citizenship. So it should be a democratic way. Today, such proposals, as well as proposals of temporary status, I understand this as official Kiev failed to failed to understand that it could not be controlled. Even in peaceful times, the territory was not controlled by Kiev. In fact, even the greatest initiative, the best initiative of Kiev, peaceful initiative in Donetsk, in Crimea, they were not implemented locally, or they were implemented in the way that discredited Ukrainian state. What official Kiev what steps should it make in order to put the end to this war, this military conflict? First of all, there should be peace. Secondly, there should be proper border demarcation. Third, people should be supported, people who would like to travel to Ukraine to work, to have normal living conditions and protection for the people that live there. We are speaking here on the priority steps, priority measures and actions. In fact, it will be, say, recognition of defeat, and nobody, unfortunately, tried to convince Donetsk people and Russian people that if Ukraine would have ended NATO, then in due time, then this war would not be waged, because NATO it's a mechanism of say holding back or withholding the war in any shape. Because there are certain powers in NATO that is aimed at preventing of any wars. On the other hand, Ukraine should be attractive for all the citizens, all the peoples, attractive for people from other nations, other countries. There should be very efficient and proactive steps and measures, and Ukraine should be comfortable, because some people probably could want. Thank you very much. We have now a speaker that could enlighten us on reforms. Thank you very much, Dmytro. Once again.